Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our weekly conversation where we decide that the world has gone mad and we have to talk about it. Joining me today, of course, are Allie and Carrie, and Jesse's joining us again. Yay!
What's up, guys?
How's your week been? I haven't talked to you guys in a week, and I haven't really been on social media for a week because I've been reading Dungeon Crawler Carl, and I've decided that if the world gets destroyed by aliens who smush everything down and give you magic in the dungeon, that would make more sense than the current political climate in Montana and Maine. I don't know what's happening. Let's talk about it.
I just want to go on record as saying, like, when the aliens come, like, when, capital when the aliens come, I will be that lady in Independence Day that was at the party on top of the Capitol Records building, like, hell yeah, bring it, brother.
Well, Allie, didn't you hear the aliens already came and nobody cares because they're not covering our rent?
I choose to believe that aliens find rent to be a bit antiquated.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh,
not in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, that's for sure. But Carrie, we got a win this week, didn't we?
Bonner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to talk about it?
Mike. Everyone gives Mike, the property owner, Mike, some love. And this is why it matters when we show up and we're loud. And yes, we got to get mean. And yes, we got to get, in their faces sometimes because they're going to hear us eventually, right? Every approach, you don't have to do that way. You can do nice, whatever you want. But every approach, every time you open your mouth and you talk about data centers to these guys, it plants a seed. It plants a seed. And luckily with Mike, they planted so many seeds, the public, the meetings, showing up, that Mike's like, I can't do it. Yay! So Mike is my hero, absolute hero.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
But so also, like, we're not done. Like, we got to get those zoning regulations in because if we don't put it in writing, anything can change at any moment.
Right. And if it's just one simple thing where it's like, we don't want data centers, then they can say, well, we just removed that line from the MCA, so now data centers are allowed. And we got to make sure that it is specific, has all the controls in place, and does all the things. One of the things that I saw today, it involved the data center in Bonner as well, was Sam Forstag. One of his friends is a resident in that area, and he went to chat with her, and they were talking about, great, it's been stopped, great, it's been there, and his post was about how these are the things that we need in code to make sure, and it's not just for Montana, this is something we should be doing nationwide, because data centers aren't just destroying Montana, they are destroying the environment wherever they are.
Everywhere.
The one that's proposed in Salt Lake would raise the temperature an average of 10 degrees. And you think, oh, well, 10 degrees isn't that big a deal. It's 10 degrees Celsius, which for those of us who like to get our measurements in eagles per square flag, we don't know what that is, but that's quite a bit more than 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It's almost 23 degrees.
I was going to say, didn't they say it was like a 26-degree swing?
Yeah, it's a massive amount, and that would change the ability to go skiing in one of the most amazing mountains in the world. Or mountain ranges, sorry, in the world. It's just astounding to me that people would allow this stuff. So, yes, we got a win in Bonner.
You've got examples of like eminent domain on cemeteries now, because that's where they want to put data centers. You've got it with people's homes, people's neighborhoods. Like
hold up. Back up. They want eminent domain a cemetery? Did they not watch Poltergeist as kids?
Exactly. That's what I thought too. I was like, get rid of the TVs in the home.
Come on, ancestors, do your thing.
Right? Exactly. Everybody's like, well, you've built a house in a cemetery. We built an entire country on a cemetery in some ways. Jesse, how's your week been?
It's been peachy. No, we've gotten quite a bit done, mainly working on the Shaft newspaper, which is a project that's sort of a side thing that I've been working on. Listening to everything everybody's doing in the Democratic Party with the division around Seth Bodnar, Alani's race, Sam's race a little bit, Brian's race. It's just looks like a giant clusterfuck right now. And every day a new story pops up.
Yeah, and
but
none of them are
also,
I don't
good.
pause for a
appreciate the
second.
Montana Democratic Party is stance on this one with Bodnar. I really don't. Like at some point, we got to be like, we are Democrats. This is who the Democrat people, nominated. This is our Democrat candidate. And like as an executive board or the party, like that's who you stand by. I saw like a glimpse of it today. The Emily, what was it? Email or text?
The op-ed. Mhm.
Oh, the
and I'm just
wait. I haven't seen this, so describe it.
She said it was to Seth and Bankhead, and it said, you guys need to meet up and figure this out.
Oh.
That's not from Emily. That was copied to her. That's from our legislative Dems.
So legislative, I don't care who's ever named, whoever did it. I don't care. I still don't think that that's cool. I don't. We are Democrats. Why are we playing into this Bodnar guy? That's what I don't understand. So whoever wrote the thing, whatever it was, I don't care. I don't think it's a good look on Montana Democrats.
Well, I think one of the more frustrating things about it is, and don't get me wrong, I'm actually a big fan of Pat Flowers personally, and for the most part politically, but it does seem to be the safe Democratic seats or people who are retiring that are more willing to throw the competitive seats under the bus at the moment. I mean, it's not downtown Bozeman that's going to have trouble electing Democrats with Bodnar at the top of the ticket, but it is the downtown Bozeman reps supporting Bodnar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's yeah. This is. I'm looking at it right now. It's Jill Cohener, Mike Fox, Tom France, Shelley Fiant, S.J. Howell, Connie Keogh, Jennifer Lynch, Marilyn Marler, Luke Muskovitz, Debo Powers, Josh Seckinger, Mark Thane, Paul Tuss, Janet Ellis, Ellie Boldman, Dave Fern, and Chris Pope. And to be fair in the letter, it looks like it's telling them to get together and fucking fight it out amongst themselves, but that puts the Democrats in a really weird position because we don't have no choice. I'm going to read you something really quick because this is something that I think people forget.
What are they talking about?
Also,
that's what the primary was for.
I know, I get that. But also, this is the part that they're missing. I'm reading from the bylaws of the Montana Democratic Party. I'm on page 20, and I'm starting at line 6. In the event the Democratic Party shall have to nominate a candidate for a statewide office, the procedures for such nomination shall be as provided by this law. The state chair shall call a meeting of the Montana. It's not may, it's shall. And then there's a procedure for call the meeting, how many people, who's there, blah, 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 who's involved. And then at the end, the state chair and secretary shall sign a certificate of nomination, naming the person selected and shall deliver the original to the Secretary of State. Shall. The only way their letter makes sense is if they're trying to get Bodnar to drop out, because if they're trying to get Alani to drop out, all that does is put us in the position of we have to pick somebody else to be in there. And Seth, in order to do that, has to drop out as an independent first and risk not being chosen. Because the Democratic Party will have electors there to choose someone. Now, they may be able to, whip up a bunch of votes, but I've met Democrats that are Montanans. I've met every Montanan that's like this. We have a slight case of ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. And that means if you tell us I have to do something, you have to do something, our first response is, the fuck? I don't think I do.
I don't have to do anything.
Right? I don't think that's going to play out the way they want. So I just want to know the thinking behind it because I'm just confused. Disappointed, really angry, and confused.
Yeah, and I think that's really an important point to zone in on, right, Kevin, is that you are feeling what so many people are feeling, whether they're Democrat, Republican, or otherwise. Montanans are, at this point, so disgusted with how this race is going down that is why we're seeing these scrambles, right? There is nothing but a bunch of game playing going on. I mean, little Johnny Tester had to come out today and say, I don't understand why you're not attacking Kurt Alme. What's the matter with the Democrats? Why are you going after Seth Bodnar instead of Kurt Alme? I'm like, listen, dude, I don't know. Everybody seems to think they're playing 4D chess, and listen, maybe they are. Who am I, man? I'm not in on all this shit. I'm just John Q. Public out here watching this shit and seeing this complete shit show unfold and thinking to myself, how dumb are these people to think that the average Montanan is not sick to death of all of this nonsense? We
And
want good governance.
Yeah. I don't know what the Bodner campaign was thinking, trotting out Tester for those quotes. I mean, it doesn't seem like the best idea to have a 70-year-old man tell a woman to shut up who's trying to defend women who were told to shut
And
up.
call their claims bullshit. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Especially on the heels of the Graham Plattner, like literally, like what, the day after all this shit with Graham Plattner?
Wait.
Like,
Talk
maybe
to
they're
me like I'm
afraid.
cute. What did I miss?
About Graham Plattner?
Well, and
No, not about
also
Graham, about
while he's at
Martin.
it, let's have him threaten to withhold the money
Mhm.
to, an organization that's primarily run by women too. We're going to stop this conversation about sex discrimination by saying, the women who talk about sex discrimination are, what did he say, repulsive? Or what was the word he used?
I don't remember. There
I
were
don't
so many.
remember.
And I'm just like,
It wasn't a good
for me,
idea.
like, I sit there and I think to myself, I'm like, if you want to communicate that lawsuit against Bodner was bullshit, you are not succeeding, because at every single turn, they're doing the thing he was accused of. They are discounting women like we don't matter. They are calling these women liars, essentially, like without saying the actual words. That's essentially what they're doing. They are playing the victim. It's like Darvo, right? They're reversing victim and offender. Like they're somehow the victim. Why are you hitting Bodner instead of hitting Kurt Alme? First of all, because Bodner's not a Democrat, is he? He's not the Democrat now, is he? He's the opponent, isn't he? Secondly, Bodner has credible accusations against him with regards to how he treats women. And every corner, these guys are proving those to be true, because they're just exercising the good old boys club at every single corner. And it makes me wonder if they even really want Bodner to win. I don't think they want Bodner to win. I think they want to
they
guarantee
want
it for
Bodner
Alme.
for governor.
That's what I think they promised him.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what they actually want a couple of years out from now, but there is one way that they could have gotten Bodner a shot at winning, and that was to go to the Democratic Party before the rules convention a year ago and convince the convention to change the rules to allow us to be in a position where we don't nominate a replacement.
Right.
They decided not to do that.
Well, here's the funny thing about that. They were there. In fact, the Tester campaign reached out to Stonewall because we had extra delegate spots open, and they had some queer people that could fill that and asked to fill them. And we filled it with them. They had plenty of people there that could have done it. They didn't.
Yeah, and they could have done that. They could have worked and convinced the delegation to change the rules. Then they could have approached the candidates and asked them to withdraw. And we could have chosen not to field a candidate.
Mm-hmm. But now
that's the only way an independent has a chance.
And even then, I don't know that an independent has a chance unless they start out completely independent and no Democrat wants to run. Like, that's the only chance. But we already had Democrats that had announced in this race literally 2 years prior. I mean, Riley had announced that she was going to be in this race and that she was in it to win it the day after the election in 2024. Like, she did the write-in campaign for the Eastern District, and then she stepped up for it. Mm-hmm. So that is a lovely blue ceiling, Carrie.
I know. I'm trying to get my stupid computer.
My not so kind description of what's happening is it really does seem like you have a bunch of coked out consultants conning butthurt boomers.
Yeah.
Coked out consultants conning butthurt boomers.
Well, isn't it weird to see now the Democratic side catch on to the grift of the Republican side? Because that's what it is, essentially, is it's just one big grift. And I can't, like, to me, the only way that I see any way out of Alme winning this whole race is for enough Montanans to be pissed off enough that they will somehow coalesce together and put in a write-in candidate that is absolutely unaffiliated on every level. That's like, I don't know necessarily, it wouldn't have to necessarily be an actual independent, but it would have to be somebody that is so far removed from this whole scheme and that everybody knows and trusts.
Except they can't, because a write-in candidate, because of changes in the last legislative session, a write-in candidate has to be announced by the filing deadline. So you can't. That's why there were no write-in lines
August 8th,
on.
August 5th.
Nope.
I called about this. Yeah, I called about this. Trust and believe.
I did too, because I asked why there were no write-in lines.
Well, on your primary ballot, that makes sense. But on your general ballot is when you're going to get the write-ins.
They still have to announce. Okay, by August 5th.
By August 5th.
All right. Well, I've got Pride to do that week, so I'll be busy.
But that's why, yeah, I'm always like trying to find someone to like, you know, go after Zolikoff, Daniel Zolikoff, because he's running unopposed.
Mm.
Well, I think it's important too that we kind of take a macro approach to this, right? Like this whole scheme from the tester camp and whomever else is on board with it, several big names evidently now, they are buying all 3 races at this point, right? They have literally bought all 3 races with the amount of money that they are of the federal races. With the amount
Eastern,
of
Western,
money,
and Senate?
Yeah. When you look at the amount of money that they are pumping in to all 3 of those, you can look, you know, obviously we see it in the Senate race. We've been talking about it for eons. That's like the story, the never ending story. You can see it even in the Western race. You know what I mean? You can see it with Forstag and the other candidates there. You can now see it in the Eastern race with them endorsing Eisenhower and him pulling in money now. So it's a situation where at some point Montanans, you know, and I say this all the time and I'm going to say it again, at some point Montanans have to choose each other over the money.
Yeah.
What that point is, I don't know. When that'll happen, I don't know. Do I think it will happen? Yes. I have enough faith in people. But the important thing is, you know, we need to really emphasize on the fact that this grand scheme is playing out across the board. This is not just one race. This is money infiltrating so many races, even smaller races, that are, you know, look at that just came out this last week with the Missoula City Council, Stacey Anderson, I think her name is. Same thing, right? And now we've got people that are like, oh, that's how they got Jim Carlino out.
Yep.
Right. And so it is so interesting. It's frustrating. Honestly, it's just frustrating to see that this is what the money does. And then to hear other people say things like, well, you can't win without the money. Bullshit. You can, but you have to figure out how to get Montanans to choose each other instead of the money. And they're never going to choose each other over the money if you keep saying, well, you can't win without the money. You just have to be willing to do the hard work.
Well, and it's not even about winning with the money, because when you look at, I think one of the things that frustrates me the most about that Montana 1 race, when it comes to, you know, Bodner and that Eastern District Independent, are that with an evenly, I don't mean to say they're evenly matched as candidates, but if you look at the voter population in the Western District, this is pretty 50-50 race. And when you have a race like that, it's going to come down to, in a certain way, dollars spent. And we have this group of people that are supporting Sam, or saying they are supporting Sam, but then they are steering all of the funding into these independent Senate races, which are, I mean, really, that's going to undermine any possibility Sam has to defeat Aaron Flynn. It's when they say it's about money winning races. Well, guess what? You've decided that you're going to pump all of the money into races that are impossible for candidates to win at the expense of Montana 1.
Yeah, and well, they're costing everybody down the ballot too. They're impacting everything, because everything they do. So when you say this person cannot be trusted and they're a Democrat, you're saying Democrats cannot be trusted. And so if you do it at the Senate level, you're talking about MTO 1 and 2, you're talking about the State House, you're talking about the State Senate, you're talking about the PSC, you're talking about all of them, because they all have a D behind their name. And if you can't figure out that when you're talking about a Democrat, you're talking about Democrats, that's a you problem. And these people that think that, oh, well, we could have an independent in there. You know what? Fine. If you want an independent voice in there, let them run as an independent, but they don't get any support from the party. They shouldn't be using XBlue. They shouldn't have access to Democratic resources. And any Democrat that's supporting them, fine, but shut up about being a Democrat because they're not.
And don't sit on the
You're chasing
executive
an
board.
independent. Yeah, and don't sit on the executive board. Who's ever on the fucking executive board that gets in there and goes, well, I think we should support the best candidate. Great. Then you need to leave the executive board because we had the primary. You think the best candidate lost and you can't fall in line to be a good Democrat and get the rest of us elected. Then get the fuck off the board. We have better things to do.
Yep.
We have better things to do. And I would like to point out, Carrie, while I don't have your face on there, I think your ceiling is actually a really good representation of what's going on with the Democratic Party, because there's a lot of painting things blue and not getting it accomplished.
No, you don't have to do that in a garage. You don't do that in a garage. You just get it to like the zone. And then it's like, this is the zone. See? My stupid tripod thing broke this week.
Oh no.
So I was out getting signatures and it broke. So that's why I'm like struggling.
The struggle bus. Okay.
Okay, so wait, hold on. John Tester said something today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
there was a Missoulian article that came out, and he had lots of quotes in it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the quotes.
Oh, he didn't say he said he was disgusted. He found it disgusting that they were focusing on Seth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, you find a woman having a conversation about sex discrimination.
Here's what he said. I'll quote it. The bottom line here is that Seth Bodnar is in play. He deserves to be criticized and commended by people that feel that way, but it never ceases to amaze me that we have some people, including the executive director of the Montana Democratic Party, who published an editorial based on bullshit and writes it as if it's fact. It doesn't say one word about Kurt Alme, Tester said in an interview. Yeah, because she only has so much space in the paper. So you run a paper, right, Jesse? How much column length do you give to any one person to write an op-ed?
Right, she's got probably 400 to 500 words, and she's going to get one a month.
So her next one can be about Kurt Alme and the fact that he lets cops rape children. That's fine. Yeah. But, she had to pick one topic. Frustrating. Just frustrating. I do love the fact that I have to come clean. I'm not the biggest Brian Schweitzer fan. I think he was a good governor. He drives me up a wall sometimes with some of the things he does. And he knows this. He's seen me for years. And we have this weird relationship. Like, we could talk and joke around, but I think he thinks I'm a moron and whatever. So, I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not an enemy by any means of any stretch of the imagination either. And I'm looking at his quote and I'm like, how is he the adult in the room? Like, exactly. He loves being bombastic and being the one who, like, when he met my mom worked at the Capitol in the SOS office. When he met her for the first time, he pulled 5 bullets out of his pocket. And he's like, just in case we need them later. I'm like, what? My mom was like, oh, okay. Rolls her eyes and continues on with teaching about notary, which is a thing. And I remember hearing that because I just moved back to Montana and I was like, what the fuck is this? But he's the one who's looking at this going, no, he should have run as a Democrat. He ultimately is pretty much a middle-of-the-road Democrat. He's not very progressive, but he's not Republican. He's not against queer people. He seems a little bit sexist and probably needs to get his act together on that one. But for the most part, seems like he's got some pretty common sense ideas on shit, right? That's a Democrat. He's not nuts. Run as a Democrat.
Well, and his surprise that, like, why are Tester and Baucus surprised that they're not being supported? These people that spent the last 30 years of their lives donating thousands and thousands of hours to your campaigns and working on your behalf are upset that, you're not supporting the cause that we've worked so hard on your behalf for any longer. I think there's a lot of legitimate reasons for people to be upset with Tester and Baucus.
Absolutely.
Right,
and here's the thing.
And I'm like,
everybody bitches
you lost, but
and everybody bitches that we don't have a bench. Well, the people in charge, the people that are elected and lead the party, they should be building the bench. And as you leave an elected, because, say you retire or you lose an election, great. That doesn't end what you can do for the party, and that doesn't end how you can affect things. You can become an elder statesperson and do amazing things. And we have people that should be the elder statespeople of the Montana Democratic. We got Nancy Keenan, John Tester, Max Baucus, Bryce Bennett stepped in it today. All of them could be helping to build a bench by convincing more people to run, educating them on what they need to do, teaching them how to give speeches, because, dear God, please learn how to give a goddamn speech. But they don't. And instead, they're doing this where they're like, oh, well, it's important that we get somebody who's going to support Montana. Yeah, Democrats support Montana. That's what we do. I don't get it. So I'm a little frustrated.
I just don't get where we have loyalty. We're kind of like the Trumpers a little bit on this one, because the people that are staying loyal to this shit with the independents are the ones that are like, I just like Tester. That is that not putting a one man over your party? Is that not? I mean, like, give me a break. Tester did not walk on water. And if you look at the people that Tester surrounded himself with and still surround himself with, they're not the nicest of guys. So your little tangent that you had about Seth Bodnar, Kev, I don't see that. I don't see a good guy underneath this all. I see an asshole who got an easy pass to run for U.S. Senate. That's what I see.
It's fair. And I mean, I'm giving a hell of a lot of a benefit of doubt with what I said.
Yeah,
but
sure.
But ultimately, I don't know him because he's just as new to politics as Alani Bankhead is.
Exactly.
But at least she's stepping in it herself and saying, I'm going to run. I'm going to be a Democrat. I'm going to embrace the things that, every other Democrat is doing. Hey, these are my values.
And she shows up.
A party that reflects them. Yeah. And Carrie, you were one of the most vocal thinking that she was a plant.
I'm still there. I mean, I'm not saying that I haven't gotten off that talking point yet, but I have more respect for her in big ways. I think that she got the rotten end of a deal. Allegedly.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? And she's sticking with it. And I think that's great. And look, I was impressed with her at the platform.
Yeah. Me too. I'm just frustrated. I'm frustrated with that.
I want him stronger on data centers. That's what I want. And I told her that. I told her that in the message.
Yeah, and I think she's there. I'm sorry. I'm capitalizing the entire fucking conversation. Allie, how are you?
No, I'm doing great, and I like listening to this stuff, right? Because as somebody who's not privy to these things very often, I don't get to see the conversations behind closed doors. I think most people do not, and that's one of the things that I like about our show is that we bring the conversations that people don't generally get to see to the public so that they can make their own decision. And I think it's really important. I also want to add, since we're talking about data centers, I contacted the Montana AFL-CIO this week to see if they would come on the podcast with us to discuss their stance, and so that our audiences could hear their perspectives from them. Of course, I heard nothing back. One of a commenter on one of the social medias was like, hey, you should have them on. I'm like, you know what? That's a great idea. We really should. We should let them represent themselves instead of us just dunking on them all day. And that person offered to help facilitate that and then never got back to me either. So I called, left a message, have not heard. I want to say to the Montana AFL-CIO, if you are listening, standing offer as far as I'm concerned. If you want to come on our show and we'll talk about it, I can't guarantee that we won't get into it because we probably will, but I think that's healthy for the electorate to see. I want them to represent their perspective so that other people can represent their own perspectives. And that way our audience can make their own choice, having heard from both sides instead of a bunch of, well, I heard that they said this, or I heard that they said that.
The rumor mill.
Yeah. No, I love it. So, here's the thing, Allie. If they don't do this, I'll just have another meeting and they'll come to do an informational picket on me. And then we'll get them there. Go. And then we'll just do it guerrilla style where we're like doing it on the street. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Man on the street. What's up, Jesse?
Well, I think some of the pushback that you saw over the last week was this idea that it's not the AFL-CIO, it's the individual labor unions within the AFL-CIO that really have these, that really want to promote the data centers, which, I understand that, stringing together short-term job after short-term job is a lot of what they do. But it's not those individual labor unions that are lobbying the party. It's not the individual labor unions that have the ability to cut off the funding to the Democratic Party. That's the AFL-CIO. It's the AFL-CIO that has voting representation at the convention, not, Local 33.
Yeah, you would think
Sorry,
that
Local
they would want
33
to
is my
send
grandpa's
somebody
back in
over.
Iowa, not
Right.
actually the one.
Local 30,
That's
I
a
think
plumbers
it is,
union.
or whatever, 41.
Local 33 definitely doesn't have representation.
Yeah, they don't.
Right.
That's a plumbers union in Sioux City, Iowa.
There you go. But yeah, I think it's important, like you would think that they would want to send somebody over to at least somehow represent them well. And they just decided, I guess, not to, which is fine, fine and dandy, whatever, do what you need to do. I will continue to reach out to see if that we can bring somebody on
directly.
What's that, Carrie?
Call Amanda Frickle directly.
There you go. I've got Erin Foley's number too, so I thought about maybe giving her a call and saying, hey, let's show our audience the two sides of this issue. Let's let them have a view of the conversation and the raw conversation, what it's like, and see how our representatives and the people around this issue are battling for the soul of Montana.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a great
so
idea.
let's go to an issue that isn't ours, a Senate race where somebody's going to have to drop out and the Democrats are going to have to replace them. Let's talk about Maine. So, one of the things that I actually saw today, so just to catch up everybody, make sure we're all in or at least have the bits of this one. Graham Plattner, there's been another credible accusation of sexual assault made against him. Pretty much everybody in the Democratic establishment and the floating independent establishment, which is, of course, Bernie Sanders and Angus King, have removed all of their endorsements of him. So it looks, and the DSCC is saying they're not going to spend any more money in there, which is actually, they're not going to support someone who's credibly accused of sexual assault, because it puts us, we're not part of the Epstein class. We're actually the working class. We're the people of the world, which is a great message for the Democrats. I think it would be one of those times where the DSCC could step up and not really spend a lot of money and just pull up and say, hey, we're not supporting somebody who's credibly accused of sexual assault. We're not supporting somebody who's actually settled a lawsuit with sex discrimination. We're going to support Alani Bankhead a little bit, who put those people away. So, her job was putting away sex predators and sex pests.
Right.
We're
Does the
support that
DSCC
person.
actually have these values, or are they
Yeah,
just
how
saying
did
that
they
this
go
time
from
because it's
Maine back to
convenient and what they
Montana?
wanted anyway?
Right. So I find it's interesting because the Maine processes mirror the Montana processes a lot. Like, the campaign doesn't have any say in anything. The state party calls a convention. They have their the party of the whole actually does the voting on who's going to replace them on the ballot. If it happens, and they have to have it done in the next 3 weeks, it's a lot. And I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out there. What I do find interesting is when Graham first came on the scene, when I was first made aware of him, it was before even the tattoo scandal, which happened in November? Is that right? Anyway.
Something like that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he seemed like down to earth, oyster, he's a Maine fisherman of some sort, and spoke really well on the topics, had good ideas, did all the things. And I was like, this is a great candidate. And then the Nazi tattoo came out. I'm like, it's old, people change. He's getting it covered up. He said he didn't know. I'll take it. Then the first of the sexual assaults. I'm like, nope, can't do this anymore. But I'm not going to, I'm not in Maine. I really want Susan Collins gone. I don't think the Mills, the governor, was the right candidate to step in. She's as old as Biden and Trump. Like, find somebody else that's younger to step in there. And then, he won the primary. And I'm like, okay, this is who they're going with. Great. It's not my state. It's not my run. I guess we'll deal with it. And then this comes up, and it's like, oh my God. Here's the thing. If you're going to run for office, and this is just a note to everybody, Republican, Independent, Democrat, it doesn't matter. If you're going to run for office, do your own self-oppo. Find out all the shit that you did. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't remember everything from 28 to 36. I worked at a gay club. I can tell you there's a lot of interesting things in there. And you can bring it up with me, but here's the thing. I learned from it. I grew from it. I got better. I became a better person. Like, and that's the thing. You have to grow from those things. So there's nothing in my past that you could bring up and attack me with where I'm not going to go, yeah, that probably happened or that did happen. Depends on how fuzzy the memory is. But here's what I learned from it. Here's how I've changed. You can't. All of the dirt in my life is dirt that I picked up and put in bags and did therapy on. So if you haven't done that and you're running for office, you're setting yourself up to become another Plattner. They will find stuff on you. They will find the people to tell the stories about what you did, and you will have to face them. And if you're too fucking dumb to already have those scripts in place, then you shouldn't run. Just don't do that to yourself.
I like Hope Wall's take on it, right? Hope Walls came out and she said, listen, she's like, this man was vetted. She's like, when I was vetted, when my dad was vice president, it was so incredibly intrusive. She's like, these people knew and they decided to go with him anyway. And I happen to agree. I just don't understand how you could trot out these scandals and then just automatically, this one came out of left field. And then you see the guy who's like, well, it just wasn't on the report. And you see how he handles that interview and you know he's lying.
Allie, I'm going to push back on that because who do you think vetted him? The Maine Democratic Party doesn't do any more vetting than the Montana Democratic Party does. You can run as a Democrat, you sign up to run. That's it.
Yeah, but I have a hard time believing that the National Democratic Party didn't have something to do because they've pinned so much of their hopes on him to flip the Senate. Like, this seat is supposed to be the one that flips the Senate. And so I'm like, come on. And they're spending a lot of money in that race, and they've been involved. That race is high press for the National Party as well.
I will give you that, yes, that is true, but I think the focus on that should be, that is because the National Party looked at those things. Well, I guess this is the same thing as you're saying, but it's because of sexism in the National Party. They looked at those things and said, his sexual assault isn't that big of a deal. But it wasn't because they vetted him in advance. It was because he was already there. Hope was in a different situation. She was definitely vetted. Her entire family was vetted by the Harris campaign because they're like, you're going to sign on to this. And so we need to know all the details about your family. And yeah, that is a real invasive process. When Amanda Curtis was chosen by the Democratic Party in a little event that we call a convention, where we get together to replace somebody who steps off the ballot because they plagiarized stuff, because we used to think that was important. When they brought her on, they didn't vet her in advance, but her campaign team, I sat in on part of that. That was the most uncomfortable fucking conversation I've ever been involved in, because the details on anyone's life is really, really hard. And that was after the fact. That was just getting it together and knowing that these are the things that people can dig up and they can use against her. And it was because you have to know. And this is, I guess, the part of it that I would make sure that everybody knows. If you're running for office, vet yourself, put it together, get your, even if you just do it mentally, get your list together, because they're going to come after you with every fact they can find. And when they find out that fact, they're going to try to attack you. And if you aren't smart enough to be able to look them in the eye and go, this is not an issue and here's why, that is a problem. And that is exactly what happened with Platter. That is exactly what happened with Rob Quist. Rob Quist got a call from a reporter who said, sir, you were arrested for marijuana possession in the 70s. And Rob Quist yelled at that reporter and hung up. That cost him the campaign. If he had just turned around and said, I was a folk singer, much like I am today, it was the 70s, I think it was pretty much a given that I was going to have marijuana. Also, it's legal now. What the fuck is wrong with you? And
let's not act like weed back then is anything like weed today.
Right.
Like, let's just be
honest. Also get it together. Like a folk singer in the 70s had weed. Oh, news at 11.
And that's the best you can do? Like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But because he wasn't prepared for somebody to bring that up, he didn't turn around and go, yeah, I had it. It should have been legal then. That's why it's legal now. Let's talk about cost of healthcare, cost of housing, cost of groceries. What are you on? Why are you calling me with this? How is that news? Mm-hmm. That's what it should have been. And he didn't do that.
That's a really great point. Like, how you field these, the pushback really matters, right? Mm-hmm. And that is where I think a lot of candidates tend to fall, because they get caught off guard, and then they have to
they freak out.
They have to field this thing from out of left field. They weren't expecting it, and most people would get defensive. I think that's fair. But if you're going to be a politician, if you're going to be in this arena for this job, you have to be able to take those situations and make something usable or feasible for the people out of them. You cannot get automatically defensive. It reminds me of when I called up the local over there in Butte, I think it's the local 41 or whatever, in Butte, just to say, hey, you know what? I'm just asking you guys to reconsider this data center thing and your support for it. As a, please stand with Montanans. And the response that I got on that was so horrendous. I was like, I hope you are not letting this man do any speaking publicly for you at all.
That is how I was treated at the convention by those assholes.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
But that's, then again, that's the good old boys club for you, right? Like, and that's where we're at. And they're really pissed off that we're calling it out. And I'm like, well, be pissed off then. But the fact of the matter is every woman knows exactly what you're saying when you act like that. Every single woman on this planet knows what it looks like. And we're getting to a boiling point where we've just had enough. I've absolutely had enough of this shit.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
As a woman, I mean, data centers aside, shenanigans aside, as a woman, the way that they are treating women throughout this race, the way they treated Riley, the way they're treating Alani, the way they're treating Emily Marburger for speaking up against Seth Bodner, is absolutely pissing.
The way they're treating Shannon, the way they're treating some of the women members of the board that are standing up.
I will say, though, that Shannon's response, I thought, was pretty tone deaf, because her response in that article today was basically, well, people just aren't being nice anymore, so we can't talk. Respectability politics is not going to work.
That was in response to the signal
chat. Yes.
That people were supposed to be nice and some people got very not nice. She didn't say they can't talk, so.
Yeah, but she shut it down. And it's like, you guys, listen, we have to be able to say things to each other that might hurt our feelings, but still come back to the table.
Yeah.
Right? We have to be able to realize that we have to be able to hear some hard shit about ourselves, myself included, everybody, and still keep the focus where it needs to be. And so what I took away from that was just a lot of respectability politics. She's not the only one. There are other people, primarily older people, who have pulled that. Well, all I hear is the foul language, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, okay, listen, I get it. I wish that we still lived in a time where pleasantries were the normal standard, but we don't live in that time anymore. Republicans are definitely not doing that. And at this point, we're beyond the point of pleasantries. We have to tell the blunt truth to get it through to people. Wake up. Wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, just the way that women are being treated altogether, if they would have done themselves such a huge favor if they, number one, would not have ignored Alani Bankhead or Riley Neal, or treated either one of them the way that they did. They would have done themselves a big favor if they would have treated these allegations differently, instead of pretending like these women don't exist, instead of pretending like these things didn't happen, or pretending like the last lawsuit didn't exist. They are not acknowledging women in any way. And when they do, they call it bullshit. It's disgusting. It's, all this stuff. I mean, you just hear all the shit that these very Bodner-tied people are saying, and it's ridiculous. And honestly, they're all Tester-tied.
I just lost my train of thought. Jesse, want to chime in?
Well, I mean, it just reminded me a little bit of, a totally different issue, still sex harassment related, but with the Windy Boy being pulled into that campaign, there were a number of Democrats who knew exactly what the rumors were about Jonathan, and publicly in the press talked about how great he would be for the campaign, specifically recruiting him into that race. They knew everything about Windy Boy, and they still did it. then the information came out. Suddenly they can't stand him anymore. Well, you knew about this 2 weeks ago. It just wasn't public.
Well, you thought you could overcome it, right? And then when it turns out, oh no, people really actually don't like that, then the rats jump ship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a question from Lisa in Lake County Dems. How about the 8 tribal nations in Montana? I love this feature. I get to put it in so people can see it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And let's see. Hey, Lisa, what do you want to know about them?
I think that's really, honestly, I think I like the direction of that as well, because I saw a clip of Bogner went to the Arley Powwow this last weekend, and he spoke there, and the arena was empty. Nobody was there. And it just, to me, it spoke to how tone deaf he is when it comes to even the most, minutia laden things regarding anything, really. I'm like, you don't know that grand entry at a powwow is at 1 and 7? Like pretty much every powwow, it's like basically at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. That's when the people are there. You don't know how to conduct yourself with respect when you're at a tribal nations powwow. Like, that's gross.
Yeah, I mean, there does seem to be a feeling that I've heard from a lot of people within those communities who are active in state politics that the Democratic Party really only seems to care about 6 months before every election.
Yep.
And that's the extent of it. Much more colorful language was used by a few people when it was explained to me, but there's a lot of disenfranchised, and honestly, because of that, skeptical voters in those nations, and that's for a very good reason. And I don't think a campaign like Seth's does anything to win them over or convince them otherwise. It just looks like more posturing and bullshit, rich people playing games and trying to use the res as a prop.
Yeah, and Jesse and I both went to Fort Peck. Fort Peck?
Yeah.
Whew. I'm trying to remember. Good God, that was a while ago. And we did the whole, we did the sweat tents, which you made it through round 4. I made it to round 2. I don't know if anybody's ever done that one. It's an amazing ceremony.
Yeah.
It is so cool to be invited to take part in somebody else's culture and get some understanding of it. But we were invited to speak. There was a massive crowd of people for us when we spoke. So to go to one of these things and not have a crowd just means that you didn't care enough to get involved in the parts of the culture that then extend to you the courtesy of those things. So it's astounding to me how tone deaf people can be. And yeah, Ali, it's just, if that's what he's doing for his campaign, he's not in it to win. I am going to talk about this. So Lake County Democrats, the rest of the question is about data centers. I'm trying to pull it up. Sorry, it's the whole.
I love that we can take questions though from the audience also. I think that's fantastic.
Right?
Yeah.
Let me see. If I could see them all completely, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Comments. Okay. There it is. How about the 8 tribal nations in Montana regarding data centers? Talking to CSKT, asking for a public message. Oh, okay. So Lisa's asking what it is that we should be, I guess, getting the public to talk about with the tribal nations. I'm hoping the tribal nations have figured out that this would be very bad for them as well. I don't know many details on it. Kari, have you talked to tribal leaders at all about data centers yet?
Yeah, Crystal, I want to say Sitbull. I apologize if it's been a while, but Honor the Earth is the organization that she runs out. I want to say out of, I want to say Deer Lodge, and I'm probably wrong, and I apologize if I am wrong. But she's running a really great, strong message about against that data centers. And she does presentations, and they're super good presentations.
Cool. We might probably want to get her in touch with the Lake County Democrats so that they can get that, because Lake County, 3/4 of the county is on tribal land. So if the commissioners are conflicting with tribal leaders or vice versa, that can cause some problems.
Yeah.
Which that's an interesting thing. Okay, so I'm going to divert the conversation a little bit. There was a treaty that was signed. Well, we signed a lot of them, and we kind of ignore them because white people. But one of the things that's interesting about the treaties in Montana is that tribal lands are not supposed to be subdivided by the state, and yet they are because county lines cross between them. And I don't know how that's legal. And I think the tribal land should kick up a little lawsuit and say, hey, you can have your counties, but tribal lands are tribal lands, and counties are peers effectively to them. So don't subdivide our lands. This is how it's going to be. I think that would be the smarter way to do it. Thoughts on that? Anyone? No? Okay, we'll continue.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a great idea. Like it is unreal to me to see how tone deaf people can be to so many of the issues that so many people have been talking about. And one of those things for the longest time has been tribal issues around tribal sovereignty, around tribal land. One thing I think for sure is that we could take a lot of lessons from tribal communities about how to defend our land against data centers. I think we could collaborate very well with tribal communities to stave off a lot of these data centers, because not only do they have the experience of constantly having to defend their land against the US government, not only do they constantly have to defend their water rights and so on and so forth. I think there's enough of a groundswell in Montana amongst everyday Montanans that we could further build the movement into a solid no thank you on data centers. Go check out Virginia.
Yeah. And I think it's we've got so many things that we need to do with tribal sovereignty. And one of the things that I learned when Jesse and I were on campaigning up there was if a white person on a res gets caught with marijuana, they're fine. But if a member of the tribe gets caught with marijuana on tribal land, they're in trouble with the feds, because marijuana is still federally illegal, but it's state legal. And there's this cross pollinate. And I'm like, it's your land. Shouldn't it be a tribal law? And like, I don't understand where there's so many things I don't understand where we get off on, well, this is how we're going to make these other people act or do it. And it's like, let's make it make sense. Make it make sense. I want politics to make sense.
Yeah, that's one of the issues at the heart of the MMIW crisis, right? Is that there are overlapping jurisdictions. And because there are overlapping jurisdictions, it's hard to get solid, quick moving investigations because nobody knows who is supposed to be doing what. And so that's one of the problem is the jurisdictional, which goes into your county lines arguments and whatnot. If there were a way to consolidate the jurisdictional issues that come there, or maybe just remove the federal jurisdictional regulations from tribal land, then I think we would see a lot more cohesion and a lot more movement on a lot of those issues. But because there is so much overlapping confusion about what laws apply where, who enforces them, who investigates them, who advocates for what, it becomes this big mess, and ultimately it's the people that pay the price.
Yeah, it looks like
and I think it's important to remember that when we're interacting with people that are parts of these communities, I mean, these are various nations with pretty different cultures between one reservation or nation to the next. They have their own unique governments that, just like our county, state, national governments have their own quirks, and there are good old boy networks, or people who are going to be more activist-like. There are people who are going to be more comfortable kind of sitting back and letting people invest money. And so it's really just, you're going to see similar divides within a lot of those communities to what we're seeing in the rest of the state too.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's important though that that's why building relationships over time is so important. When we hear that, like Democrats or really any party is only interested in tribal speaking or participation from the tribal nations in our state 6 months before an election, that is a condemnation in and of itself, because those relationships are not there and nobody is taking the time to build those relationships. Nobody is staying in constant contact. Nobody is really treating tribal nations like they have an actual seat at the table instead of they're just a card to pull at the last minute. And that's not right, because if anybody, especially on the Democratic side, if anybody is going to be a strong force for how to beat this bullshit that's going on with the Republicans, it's gonna be the tribal nations. They know the fight. They know who they're dealing with intimately on this same level. They understand this. And I think they deserve all of us to build relationships over time and not just when we need something from them.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think comes from building a bench and doing the right thing with the party is, grassroots outreach is literally feet on the ground, go out to the doors, knock on them, talk to your neighbors. We're coming up on the end of the hour. And one of the things I really love about talking to all of you, and Jesse, thank you for joining us again, is that we all kind of approach things from different perspectives. But at the end of the day, all of us, even when we disagree, we know, hey, these are my allies. And in 70% of the time, we agree on stuff. And that's pretty fucking amazing. We could work together. And I hope the rest of our leadership in the Montana Democratic Party and in the progressive people of Montana can do that as well. It's not that hard to swallow your pride and just say, hey, I can't do this alone. Let's build something. And, so Carrie, I think you need to reach out to the Lake County Democrats and make sure that they got all the information from you, because you have so many details. And I know you post them all on TikTok, but get them to them, because it looks like CSKT is asking for public comment and wants to know a little bit more about it, because they're going to make some sort of decision. I don't know exactly what it is, but Lisa at Lake County Democrats can definitely hook you up. If you don't have their contact information, I'll give it to you after the show. For people that are just watching, I hope you tune in every week, because we're not going to have really long discussions. I don't want this to be a 3-hour thing, mostly because my brain will fucking melt. And send us questions that you have. Oh, she just put it in the chat. It's Lake County MTDems@gmail.com. But if you have questions, or if you see something that's happening and you want to know why, if you want to have a conversation about it, you can join us on the show. We obviously can send you a link. You can join us anytime. We're happy to have people come on and talk about what's happening. If we're going to build from the grassroots, we got to start with the people. So, and I like having fun when I talk about politics, but I'm so frustrated right now. I just literally want to start slapping people, and I can't, because shit splatters. So
I think we all need to get a Weeble Wobble in our respective studios, so that we can collectively punch our Weeble Wobbles that fall over but don't fall down. How does that go? I don't know.
They weeble, they wobble, but they don't fall down.
There you go.
Yes, that's what's taking up room in my brain. An ad from the 70s. Yay.
You're welcome.
Y'all, thank you so much. I'd like to keep these short. I like to keep these under an hour, because then I can rebroadcast them. So I'm going to call it. Thank you all for joining us. Lisa, thank you for chiming in. You can chat on any of the systems. We can pull the chat up. We will have the conversation about whatever you bring to us. We're always happy to talk about it. Jesse, thank you for joining us. Carrie and Allie are my co-hosts with this. It's been an awesome time. Thank you so much for being here. And let's call it a show. Thanks.
Bye.